Welcome back to another episode of I Wish They Knew, a show where we share big ideas that deserve more attention in about the time it takes to enjoy a cup of coffee. I'm Joe Hirsch. Today's wish comes from George Pesansky. George has fostered a culture of continuous improvement in numerous Fortune 500 companies and has provided training, coaching, and support. Forget this, over 10,000 Six Sigma, Lean, and world-class manufacturing professionals across 6 continents. This guy knows his operations, and he's just written a great book about all that he's learned, and it's called Super Performance: 8 Strategies to Reach Full Potential for Yourself, your team, and your organization. And I think after hearing George, you're going to be ready to do just that. George, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
I am too. Thanks so much for coming out. And what do you wish more people knew?
I wish more people understood that your potential is not measured by time.
So you're an operations guy,
I
and
am.
this book is a book about how companies can optimize their operations, full disclosure. But it really, to me, was more about how individual leaders and teams can reach their full potential, how they
Yes.
can sort of operate better as teammates, as leaders, how they become, in short, a super performer. So who are these super performers out there, and what are they doing differently than everybody else?
So part of the secret to this is exactly my wish that, your potential is not measured by time. I think as human beings, we think of sort of achieving the 100th level of the video game, and that's where I've reached my full potential. And when I get to that place, I'll stay in that place forever. And the reality is there's nothing that works that way. That every day we have moments of full potential. We have moments where things work in such a powerful and perfect way. What I hope and what I see a super performer being able to do is recognizing when those moments strike and recognizing when things are working well and understanding why, understanding the systems, understanding the practices, understanding the people, so that we can replicate that and we can extend that and we can stretch that. What we have really done, I think, as a society is we've focused entirely on our problems. We have focused on all the things that prevent us and disable us and don't allow us. And even when you look at things like social media, you're always looking at why can't I have, who has more? And the reality is we often have so much. And if you can expand on and you can grow what you have, that is what can really help you become that true super performer.
So super performance isn't restricted to just a talented few. It's really accessible to anyone.
Absolutely. And I think one of the great things, and I hope my book inspires people, is that super performance can come in a lot of different forms. It's not about, how much money you earn or sort of what title you may achieve. You can be a super performer and be, a performer, a singer, an actor, or you can be an enormous leader who's really got, fantastic empathy and really can inspire a group. We all have talents, and your super performance is really about expanding and understanding those talents and how it contributes to your team, how it contributes to your organization, and even to society overall.
Right. So it isn't just a matter of what, it's a matter of how.
Yeah, there's 3 questions I really love that, I was inspired by Stephen Covey, and it's the what, the how, and the why. And I think when leaders understand, the outcome, the what, and they're very good at articulating why, so people have context, then the ability to really start to focus on how. And that's kind of my point around when have we done this really well and how did we work in those moments, but also how are we not winning and how can we do the problem solving. We can't exclusively, focus on our wins and ignore our losses. My argument in the book is to try to give them equal airtime, because most of the teams, most of the coaching I've done has taught me that people with enormous potential focus almost entirely on the things they don't do well. And they don't give any time to expanding and growing the things that are natural talents or abilities that they've developed.
Yeah, they're focusing on what's wrong, but not what's strong.
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah.
So part of the equation here really is changing the definition of success. And you mentioned this just a moment ago, moving from individual wins to, I guess, collective achievement. Talk about that shift and how leaders can help create that.
Yeah, one of the kind of themes I love is this idea of we versus me. And, I think it's kind of the satisfaction of being a parent and seeing your children succeed. It's the satisfaction of being able to, kind of participate on a sports team and seeing the team win. And often we don't necessarily, take that win and say, well, this was my individual contribution that helped the team win. We feel kind of a collective success, and we really enjoy the moment of our team winning, our children succeeding. And I think, that is such a valuable lesson that we don't often use when we get into business and we start thinking about careers and jobs, where it does become a lot more competitive and it is my contribution versus your contribution. And I think when you kind of take a more collaborative, broader view of how do I help the group succeed? How do I help, the broader coalition succeed? And what are those contributions we make? I think we find our strongest leaders are the ones who build those, kind of organizations. They build those relationships. They build those kind of people who are thinking about each other, not just about themselves. In the book, I talk about kind of a famous loss of the U.S. Men's Olympic basketball team, where you had all of the all stars of the day all out there playing as if they're going to have their photograph on the news that night, and they ended up losing rather badly because they played as individuals rather than a team. And I think it's just such a great story of the difference between teamwork versus individual effort.
And it's very hard to actually deliver that when you're only focused on the self and not the team success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So even with that kind of a mindset of we and a collective achievement, it is hard to deliver results when there's drag in the system. What are the most effective teams doing to turn those best practices into their standard practice?
Yeah, it's actually a much simpler equation than I think most people would expect, because it is simple as listening. The people who are doing that work every day, I was just in a franchise sandwich shop and watching the people who are doing the work struggling with the system that the franchise operates around how they weigh and how they pay and all the things they do. And I thought, whoever designed all this never actually worked in a sandwich shop, because if you actually worked here, you'd realize how ridiculous some of the things they were being asked to do really were. And you see this in manufacturing, you see it in hotel operations, you see it in customer service, you see it at the grocery store. And how do you find the friction? Well, you talk to the people who do the work, and you don't talk to them about how good your idea is, how amazing the app is that we've created for you to use to take sandwich orders. You listen to them and say, well, what would you need to be able to deliver value to the customer? What gets in your way? What works for you? What has helped you be successful? And what frustrates and challenges you? The lean manufacturers call this a Gemba walk. This is just going out, listening, learning, and being humble enough to understand that the people who do the work almost always know more than the people who design the systems.
Yeah, there's some really well documented examples along those same lines. The CEO of Starbucks actually working as a barista, the CEO of Uber actually driving cars. And just
Exactly.
it gives you more of a sense of what is the day to day work like so that before you impose your will, you have an understanding of what actually works.
Yeah, absolutely. They say common sense is not so common. And I have found over and over again that people really believe they understand their operations, and they don't, in the sense that they have not gone out there for extended periods, not just to do it themselves, but to really listen to the people who are doing that work. They just think by asking how was your weekend that I've done everything I need to do. And that's of course not even scratching the surface.
So, does that mean designing the systems for gathering more feedback and opportunity for convening people to share their insights?
Yeah, I think making a habit, having a pattern of, what sometimes is called that Gemba walk, which is something you can do in any kind of operation, And the goal is to go out to where the work is being done. And again, to really listen to the people who are doing that work and to really have the empathy of what it's like to have to sort of work through the issues they're experiencing. If you go out and, the feedback is everything is great, then people were just not willing to tell you the truth. And then you've got to be really introspective as a leader as to why was I not approachable? Because there's always something.
Yeah. Yeah. Not getting feedback is also a form of feedback.
It is. It is. Yeah, absolutely.
So when it comes to solving these problems and really standardizing these practices that can stand up to external pressures, you wrote something. It's that you can't sustain what you can't explain. Can you tell us more about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, it came out of the famous kind of Drucker quote of you can't improve what you can't measure. And, the second half of that being you cannot sustain what you can't explain. And it was really around this idea of what I focus on very often around helping people understand what works is finding the root cause of your success. That we spend so much time, so much energy trying to find root causes for problems, mistakes, accidents. And there's an entire industry that's all, kind of the training and things they do. And I've made my practice really trying to understand how to do that for successes. And if I don't know what was the root cause of what has helped me be successful, what has worked, then I am likely to not sustain it. I may have had this fleeting moment where everything was really good, but I can't tell you why it was really good. I can't explain how we did the work. So therefore, I might change my mind and just try some things differently because I don't know how important, how influential those decisions were. And that's why we see a lot of sort of cyclic performance is we don't know why we succeed. So therefore, we keep changing things.
What really struck me in reading this is that super performance is not about extraordinary effort. It's just about ordinary decisions and habits. And I think that to me also captures another part of this book, which is how leaders can become super performers in the work that they do. Other than some of the things we've already covered in terms of listening better and just taking the time to really understand what works and what doesn't work, are there certain practices or is there certain advice that you would offer to leaders who want to develop more super performance in their own leadership practices?
Yeah, I love the mental model of the factory. And it's probably because I've spent, my entire career working, kind of in those kind of operations. And if you use that mental model, and instead of thinking of a factory that's going to make a car or make a widget, that our goal here is to create improvement, to create change, to create success. You're going to have a capacity. There's only so many things you can do, and you're going to have resources that are going to have to do work. You're going to have raw materials and you're going to have waste where people make mistakes. And I think leaders who start to think of improvement as a system and not just a system that another company has used as an operating system, like General Electric or Toyota, but think of it as the way I'm utilizing the talent, the time, the money that's available to my team or my organization. And I want to treat it as if it's like any other factory. How do I get good utilization? How do I get good quality? How do I get good throughput? And just that one little mental exercise of let's think of this like we run our own factory has helped me transform so many organizations and the way they use resources and the way leaders interact to try to drive change and try to drive improvement in their organization. I call it the improvement factory.
Right. And doing more with what you have.
Exactly. Yeah. You just because you get more orders, no one's buying you another machine. So what do? We figure out how to reduce the cycle time. We reduce the amount of downtime. And again, we see this so often that people say, well, I can't do more projects. They say, well, okay, well, how many people are available right now who are actively engaged in current activities? And not everybody is. It's like having a machine that's down. So we're not really thinking about utilization. We're not really thinking about cycle time. And we're certainly not thinking about sustaining those results because if I end up making something, if I end up improving something, and then a year later I end up redoing it anyway, why did you do it in the first place? Really making sure that what you create is going to last and it's a solid, reliable system that people love. That's what's worth the effort.
The book is Super Performance, and the author, and he did a super job describing how individuals can optimize themselves, their teams, and their results is George Pesansky. George, thanks for sharing your wish with us today.
Thank you so much, Joe. It was such a pleasure.